Welcome to the Explainer. You know that feeling when you're standing in a quiet forest or maybe on a windy beach and you feel like the world itself is trying to say something? Well, today we're diving into an ancient and I think really beautiful idea that says it is. It's the idea of the natural world singing praise to its creator.
Just listen to this passage from Psalm 148 in the Hebrew Bible. It paints this absolutely stunning picture. See, it's not just people who are called to praise. It's a full-blown cosmic choir. And the singers are everything from the sun and moon, all the way down to sea monsters and even stormy winds. Now, that kind of imagery is incredibly powerful, right? But let's be real for a second. It also brings up a pretty big question for us today. What does this actually mean? I mean, is this just some flowery poetry, or is it pointing to a much deeper truth about the world, and maybe our place in it?
And get this, it's not just a one-off idea from some random passage. This theme of non-human creation praising God, it shows up at least 55 different times in the Old Testament. 55. So clearly, this was a really common and important way of seeing the world.
Okay, so let's try to decode some of this poetry. To really get what's being said, we first have to understand the kind of language we're dealing with here. So think about it like this. These texts aren't scientific reports. They're not trying to give us a literal, factual description of how a tree works. They're hymns, they're poems. And that means they're using language that's meant to be evocative, metaphorical, to get at a truth that you just can't state in plain facts. And the main literary tool they use to do this is something called personification. It's a really clever way to make a huge point, that the whole created world, just by existing, is responding to and reflecting its creator. So it's not about a literal voice, it's a metaphorical one.
And just look at the incredible range of this imagery. It's not just one or two things. You've got floods clapping their hands, trees singing for joy, mountains literally breaking out into song. Even the desert is rejoicing. The entire world is shown as being alive, responsive, and totally engaged.
So, how have people made sense of this over the centuries? I mean, what does it mean to listen to this kind of praise? Well, it turns out thinkers throughout history have really wrestled with this, and they've come up with some absolutely fascinating interpretations.
And this isn't just some ancient idea we've lost. No way. Thinkers all through history, from medieval mystics to Protestant reformers and even modern theologians, have all been trying to tune into this cosmic frequency. For example, back in the 12th century, the mystic and composer Hildegard of Bingen had this incredible vision of a fiery essence. For her, it was a real, spiritual, divine force that animated every single part of the natural world. So to her, nature's praise wasn't just a metaphor. It was the visible proof of this divine fire.
Okay, now fast forward a few centuries to the Protestant reformer Martin Luther. He argued something kind of similar, but from a more theological angle. He believed that God isn't some distant watchmaker, but is intimately, substantially present in the very fabric of creation, even in something as tiny as a single grain of wheat. And all of this, it builds toward a really radical idea, one that completely challenges our usual place in the universe, by forcing us to look beyond our own human-centered views. A lot of modern Western thought has been deeply anthropocentric. It's basically the worldview that puts us, humans, at the absolute center of everything. And it often sees the rest of nature as valuable only because of how it can serve us. It's just a resource for us to use. But this ancient poetry, it offers a profound, totally different alternative. In this vision, the world doesn't exist for us. It suggests that all of creation has its own built-in value, because it has a direct relationship with the divine, one that is completely independent of humanity. In fact, some scholars take this idea a step further. They interpret these dramatic descriptions of nature not just as passive praise, but as something called a theophany. That means a direct, active response to the very presence of God. So when a storm is raging or the earth is quaking, it's seen as creation itself reacting to a divine appearance. Okay, so this is all really fascinating history and poetry. But why should we care about these ancient ideas today, right here in the 21st century? Well, what's so amazing is how these ancient ideas speak directly to our most modern ecological concerns. This isn't just theology anymore. It's a blueprint for environmental ethics. It pushes us to see an interconnected world, to value nature for its own sake, and to see ourselves not as masters of the earth, but as fellow participants. And in this worldview, humanity has this unique and really powerful role. We're the ones who can consciously give voice to creation's silent praise. We can basically act as the chorus leaders, amplifying the song through our own worship and care. Or, through our destructiveness, we can hinder it and pretty much silence the choir.
So ultimately, these ancient hymns and poems leave us with a pretty provocative thought, maybe even an uncomfortable one. They challenge us to rethink our most basic assumptions, to see the world not as some inert object for us to use, but as a living, breathing symphony. And they ask us, what if the world has been singing all along, and we've just forgotten how to listen?